All right. Welcome to the next episode of Personality Typing with Habib. Today, we're going to be covering Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the Israeli prime minister. And I also kind of view him as a war criminal because there is a genocide ongoing in Palestine. But, we're going to stay professional here and just get on with the personality typing. And as a usual disclaimer, no type accuracy guarantees. I try to do as much work as I can to get an accurate type, but I can't really guarantee it. So there's always that. So in this episode, we're going to be, doing a short recap of the previous one, and then we're going to get into the clips of Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as a final guess for his type. And then we're going to preview the next episode. But the bulk of the episode is just going to be about analyzing the personality psychology of someone like Benjamin Netanyahu, because we want to understand what makes a person like this tick, and we can also get insights into our own selves and our own darkness, because we all have some negativity inside of us and we all have darkness. And that's kind of the goal with the dark and light of these personality typings that I'm doing for season 2. I'm going to be covering unsavory people who are just, good, and then people who are not good. This is someone who I think is not good. But yeah, so getting on with it. The previous typing was what I would call a light typing, someone who is good, someone who's an online content creator who is also having a background in therapy. So if you're more trying to see, what good people are up to, this is the kind of thing. Patrick Teahan, he specializes in childhood trauma, and he has a lot of really great content out there. So yeah, he's I got him as a double feminine INTP, TINE, consume, play, blast, sleep, blast, number 4 social type. But yeah, it's I have no revisions on that type for now, although it's entirely possible he's the extroverted feeling version, FE. But when someone is double activated in that extroverted feeling, in that play, that NF play, they're going to come off like more extroverted than they really are. So yeah, moving on. But it's good to have someone who is more in the light topics to kind of do your own healing work and all that. But when you're sufficiently healed, it's time to, slay the dragon and kind of look at the dark people of our modern world. And this person is basically not only the prime minister of Israel, but also a recipient of a lot of our tax dollars. And so my first impression is that this is some kind of IP, ISTP or so, or ESTP, not really ESTP. You can kind of see that he's an ISTP or possibly an INFJ, but he seems very much in the sleep first realm of things, where he has the introverted thinking and introverted intuition. At least that's my bias. Before watching him, I can kind of see that he's getting along with Donald Trump, who has SETI and very high SEFE functions. So because he's able to kind of play chess, mentally with Donald Trump, and he's kind of got Donald Trump wrapped around his finger, it kind of says that he's speaking the same language as Donald Trump. So, yeah, I mean, it's all decided by these personality traits in our brain. That's why we want to understand these things. And so my first impression includes people like Tim Allen here, who was an actor, is an actor. I'm not sure what he's doing now. David Allen, who started the Getting Things Done method. That's your more theoretical side. And INFJ Jumper Bob Odenkirk, I believe, is the Observer version. But you can see kind of some of these people have longer heads. And yeah, and then he even reminds me a little bit of Neil Mohan, at least with certain facial gestures. But I think that might just be the NI going off. And here he looks kind of like a crazy conspiracy theorist. Yeah, let me just do an audio check. Looks good. But yeah, so those were my first impressions. I can see that Benjamin Netanyahu does have his NI plans. That's basically your planning function and your prefrontal cortex. Benjamin Netanyahu has very strong use of planning. He's been planning everything that we're seeing now is with Iran war, with America spending billions and trillions of dollars and human capital on fighting these random people, in the Middle East. It's because people like Netanyahu, as well as Netanyahu's father, they've been planning these kinds of things for a very long time. And of course, there are certain people who benefit from that. And so it's not just him alone. He's a representative of certain interests. And so, yeah, but he's able to do it efficiently through the TI and the NI, which, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But we have a lot of clips to prove, which side is up, which side is down, you know. But I would be very curious what your guess for Benjamin Netanyahu is. We're going to get into the first two clips. So we're only going to be doing two videos because there are these very long ones. The first one is by Lex Fridman, and it's kind of enough to do the typing. And they're pretty long, and we're not going to be watching the whole thing here. It's just going to be clips. But if you want to watch them on your own, feel free to do that. And Lex Fridman is an ENTP, so he's got the extroverted intuition as well as introverted thinking. And he's pretty introverted for that type because he's play last, right? And that's where objective personality kind of goes harder on that. Like, you have more than just the 16 types. You have more extroverted and introverted versions of them, and Lex being a more introverted version of an ENTP. He's able to kind of go back and forth with Benjamin Netanyahu. One of the things you see in the interview, and you might see a little bit of that in the clips, is that Lex Fridman is trying to humanize Netanyahu a bit. He's trying to humanize all kinds of people like Elon Musk. And it's not easy to do with IPs. It's not easy to do with deciders. And so we're going to get into that in the first clip, is seeing, is Benjamin Netanyahu a decider? Does he care more about people or things? Observers care more about things, but Netanyahu might be on the other side of that. And we'll also see self-over tribe. That's an easy one.
You're also hated by many. In fact, I think you may be one of the most hated men in the world. So if there's a young man or a young woman listening to this right now who have such hate in their heart, what can you say to them to one day turn that hate into love?
I disagree with the premise of your question. I think I've enjoyed a very broad support around the world. There are certain corners in which we have this animosity that you describe, and it sort of permeates in some of the newspapers and news organs and so on in the United States. But it certainly doesn't reflect the broad support that I have. I just gave an interview on an Iranian channel, 16 million viewers. I gave another one, just did a little video a few years ago, 25 million viewers from Iran. Certainly no hate there, I have to tell you, not from the regime, okay? And when I go around the world, and I've been around the world, people want to hear what we have to say, what I have to say as a leader of Israel, whom they respect increasingly as a rising power in the world. So I disagree with that. And the most important thing that goes against what you said is the respect that we receive from the Arab world, and the fact that we've made 4 historic peace agreements with Arab countries. They made it with me. They didn't make it with anyone else. And I respect them, and they respect me, and probably more to come. So I think the premise is wrong. That's all.
Well, there's a lot of love, yes. A lot of leaders are collaborating, are
respect, I said, not love.
Yep. Okay, so you see how weird he is with people, and I love this by indie author here, some number popularity talk. That's SF play for sure. So he's Benjamin Netanyahu has SF play in the stack. He sounds a little bit like Trump. So that's what an STP sounds like. They're communicating value in the extroverted world of like, I go to this part of the world, that part of the world. these Arabs, never mind how many deals are being struck between those Arab countries and all that. He's not telling you everything. He's just telling you the popularity side of it, which was, I'll highlight that one more time. But yeah, it's, yep, and FE talk from the host. Yeah, basically, they're just tracking what is popular, what is valuable. And, but really, it's, one of the other things outside of the SF play aspect of this clip, which we can see those functions on display, is we're seeing that he's focused on the people side of things. He's definitely not being cool double decider about things. He's not being like, oh yeah, they like me, but we have some issues here and there, but we'll work them out. It's not like that. It's like, no, these people love me. Like, it's just, it's just one direction. And so he's not really going back and forth, really chill. It's more like, hey, they respect me, they don't love me. And it's like, why are we talking about this? It's yeah, I mean, it's possible he's, it's still possible he could be an observer, but at least from what I'm seeing, it's a little bit more on the decider side of things. But that's as far as we can go there. And the next clip out of the same interview, this is with Lex Fridman, the ENTP. We're going to be looking a little bit at, is he self over tribe? Is he a decider? Let's just see.
Well, let me ask you about this market of politics. So you have served 6 terms as prime minister, over 15 years in power. Let me ask you again, human nature. Do you worry about the corrupting nature of power on you as a leader, on you as a man?
Not at all, because I think that the thing that drives me is nothing but the mission that I took to assure the survival and thriving of the state, the Jewish state. That is, its economic prosperity, but its security and its ability to achieve peace with our neighbors, and I'm committed to it. I think there are many things that have been done. There are a few big things that I can still do, but it doesn't only depend on my sense of mission. It depends on the market, as we say. It depends really on the will of the Israeli voters, and the Israeli voters have decided to vote for me again and again, even though I wield no power in the press, no power in many quarters here, and so on. Nothing. I mean, I'm going to be very soon the longest serving prime minister in the last half century in the Western democracies. But that's not because I amassed great political power in any of the institutions. I remember I had a conversation with Silvio Berlusconi, who recently died, and he said to me about, 15 years ago, something like that. He said, "So, Bibi, how many of Israel's television stations do you have?" And I said, "None." He said, "You have none?"
Do you have?
Do you have? I said, "None. I have 2.
Yeah.
He said, "No, but what you mean? You don't have any that you control?" I said, "Not only do I have none that I control, they're all against me." So he said, "So how do you win elections?" And, with both hands tied behind your back. And I said, "The hard way." That's why, I have the largest party, but I don't have many more seats that I would have if I had a sympathetic voice in the media.
Does that sound familiar? So Donald Trump talks like this a bit. And yeah, I mean, so it's not necessarily a slam down between decider observer in that sense, but at least I keep hearing him kind of go towards a decider angle of like, just the people talk and just like how am I doing? And yeah, I mean, it's we'll just keep seeing. And I think we have a comment here. I kind of agree with decider weird though. Yeah, it is this me against them kind of situation. And then you're reminded of the NIFI sleep last consume play last. Yeah, that animal stack, that's going to be the big question for me, is like, what exact animal stack is this? But yeah, you can see some play lastisms, and that's something to keep an eye out for. And then your bias coming in here with Steven Seagal. I think that's a good one. It's in that region, at least animal stack wise. Like there's a sense of NI control, and then there's also a sense of like, hey, don't play with me. I've got this chess game figured out, and he's basically orchestrating, on behalf of, or as he says, on behalf of the mission for the Jewish people. He's trying to do whatever he's doing for his people, but no matter what it costs other people. So that's kind of the problematic nature of IP, but so is nature, so just to keep going on the decider versus observer coin is like, if he is a decider, then we should be seeing double observing. When it comes to AI, he shouldn't be freaking out about it. And does he freak out about it? Does he ask questions about it? How does he engage Lex with this? So sometimes what I see from the double observers is that they're not freaking out about the things because they're actually having conversations with people about the things. So they're not freaking out about it. They're just doing the work of learning about the thing.
Issue that we constantly have to deal with. And the second question you have is, suppose you solve that problem and you deliver money, okay, to those who are not involved in the AI economy. What do they do? The first question you ask somebody whom you just met after the polite, the polite exchanges is, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, people define themselves by their profession. And it's going to be difficult if you don't have a profession. And, people will spend more time self-searching, they'll more time in the arts, more time in leisure. I understand that. If I have to bet, it will annihilate many more jobs than it will create, and it will force a structural change in our economics, in our economic models, and in our politics. And I'm not sure where it's going to go.
And that's something we have to respond to at the nation level and just as a human civilization. Both the threat of AI to just us as a human species, and then the effect on the jobs, and like you said, cybersecurity.
And what do you think? You think we're going to lose control?
No, first of all, I do believe, maybe naively, that it will create more jobs than it takes.
Write that down and we'll check it.
It's on record.
And we don't say we'll check it after our lifetime. No, we'll see it in a few years.
We'll see it in a few years. Oh. I'm really concerned about cybersecurity and the nature of how that changes with the power of AI. And in terms of existential threats, I think there will be so much threats that aren't existential along the way that's the thing I'm mostly concerned about, versus AI taking complete control and becoming sort of super.
Yep. So Lex Fridman is taking the observer stuff super seriously. That's why he's trying to get an answer on it. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is basically just, as I'm saying here, just looking at the observers from an outside lens. And he's like, how are you guys doing? Oh, so you're freaking out about this. Interesting. Okay. Do we really have to worry about that? And so here we have BB showed his masculine with write that down. Yeah, and I'd say that's what double observers also do, is that they're tracking the information. They're not scared of the things because they will actually do the observing properly and check back and forth between the intuition and the sensing. So, and he is not an EP. Let's see. He is, we will hold you accountable for what you said. Oh my God. Yeah, you're right. That is definitely like decider making it weird. The things is like, hey, you said this, and now it's all personal and stuff. The observations are becoming personal decider issues. But yeah, that's him on the, AI economy. You can't even tell what the thing conversation was about because it's now suddenly become about people. And so in this clip, we're going to hear, so I saw this interview. This was July 2023. And I remember when I saw this specific clip, I kind of knew things were going to go in a bad direction from the October situation, October 23, because you can already see in this clip that Netanyahu was planning to control the, that entire area of Palestine and, you know, the airspace and things like that, because he's going to be framing things in terms of like a practical reality. And you'll just see how he's just kind of trying to like, is like, hey, that pizza is mine, you know, like whatever. Anyway, you'll see. Yeah.
They'd say that it's not going to work in that concept. So what do you do? What do you do with the Palestinians? Okay, they're still there, and unlike them, I don't want to throw them out. They're going to be living here, and we're going to be living here in an area which is, by the way, just to understand, the entire area of so-called West Bank and Israel is the width of the Washington Beltway, more or less, just a little more, not much more. You can't really divide it up. You can't say, well, you're going to fly in. Who controls the airspace? Well, it takes you about 2.5 minutes to cross it with a regular, 747. Okay, with a fighter plane, it takes you 1.5 minutes. Okay, so you're not. How are you going to divide the airspace? Well, you're not going to divide it. Israel is going to control that airspace and the electromagnetic space, and so on. So security has to be in the hands of Israel. My view of how you solve this problem is a simple principle. The Palestinians should have all the powers to govern themselves and none of the powers to threaten Israel, which basically means that the responsibility for overall security remains with Israel. And from a practical point of view, we've seen that every time that Israel leaves a territory and takes its security forces out of an area, it immediately is overtaken by Hamas or Hezbollah.
Okay. Yeah. So aside from that demonization of Hamas and Hezbollah, which are just the resistance fighters from Lebanon and Palestine, you know, I reversed the order of that. But yeah, so that's the thing, is like he is carving out these practical realities that are favoring him and his people and, you know, Israel, the Jewish people, all that. It's like, hey, this land, you know, he's like a squatter. You know, I live in New York City, and sometimes, you know, there are people squatting and they're taking over apartments that way. And so basically what Netanyahu's doing is like, hey, I squatted here and now there's not enough room. Who's going to control the airspace? Who's going to control the electromagnetic fields? It should be us. And so it's just like taking over more and more and more. Maybe you have someone like that in your life. Maybe I don't know. But there are people who just, they take over an area and they just want to take over the next area and then the next area and the next area, because it's never enough. And you can kind of hear that framing. So it's kind of dangerous to listen to someone like this without understanding how the words and the actions are tied to one another, because you have to see how Netanyahu's framing impacts people's lives and how this is just an implication. It's implying future violence, right? Predicting and shaping future structures. So anyway, that's TI and NI. And, you know, whatever you have is actually mine. It's this energy. Everything that physically exists is now mine. That's basically what he's doing. So in the next interview, which is more recent, so that was from 2023, so almost 3 years later, he did this interview recently on 60 Minutes, which is now, you know, I think it's owned by CBS or something, but yeah, it's kind of a propaganda network at this point, allegedly. He's talking to someone named Major Garrett. It's not an actual like major of an army or something, but this is the second video that I'm going to be showing with him. And it's basically, we're just going to be going over like, is he really an IP? You know, let's kind of look at that. And you have to read between the lines, right? This is someone with intuition. So they're going to be implying a certain amount of things. And so let's take a look at this and see what he's implying.
60 Minutes overtime.
I think it's here.
What Israel gave to the United States, just on intel, he says it's worth 5 CIAs. Now, I don't know if it's worth 5 CIAs or 1 CIA. I respect the CIA a lot. But in tangible matters, Israel is your best ally. It's the only one that really provides you with gems of intelligence, shares our incredible technology, appreciates every penny that you gave us, deeply appreciates. You know, if you go in Israel today, it's not like other countries, like everybody's pro-American because we appreciate what America stands for. We appreciate the aid that was given. We appreciate what is happening now. We appreciate President Trump's resolute stand and the fact that the American military is performing so miraculously and so bravely alongside our brave people, our brave pilots and soldiers. We appreciate all that. But I think it's time that we ended over time an agreed schedule, American military aid, and move from aid to partnership.
The British ambassador earlier this year said privately, it's since come out, that Britain does not have a special relationship with the United States anymore. He said if there's a special relationship, it's between Israel and the United States. From your vantage point, is that correct?
I don't always find myself in agreement with British ambassadors, but I'll have to agree on this one.
I'd like to ask you about what you know, because in our conversations here the last couple of days, we picked up some interesting suggestions about this, about China providing materially valuable military.
All right. So that was an interesting clip there, but I think there might be something in the beginning. So I'm going to show that. But the idea is to kind of look at how he is viewing the taking of others and trying to seem self-made. Basically, like, they're taking this money, you know, they're kind of saying that they're an ally of the United States, but then what are they actually doing? Are they actually giving anything in return? You know, and then all of a sudden they're now shopping for who is going to be their next donor. If the United States no longer funds Israel, then who is going to be the next person to give them money? That's basically what Netanyahu is looking at. That's basically what Israel is looking at, because they can't really survive on their own. So they need to just take resources from some other country, even though they're constantly bragging about this, that, and the other thing. They still need billions of dollars. I think they have something like almost $400 billion from the United States went to Israel. So over the last number of years. But let me see if there's something in the earlier part of this clip. And well, in the beginning of the interview, let's see if there's anything good.
Does it really want?
Wait.
60 Minutes Overtime.
Mr. Prime Minister, good to see you.
Good to be with you.
Is the war with Iran over? And if it isn't, who will decide when it is?
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium, that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There's still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that...
All right, that wasn't quite it, but you can see some of the double observing there. You can see he's tracking things. He's making predictions based on actual sensory facts. But we're going to go back to the whole question on double observing.
Is its interest? Does it really want to have Iran controlling the waterways to supply the energy that China needs? Would it not prefer to have open waterways that are not subjected to this kind of violent blackmail? You know, not everything is a zero-sum game. Just as, you know, if you think about it, you know, I'm talking about the brilliant future of AI, but there's dangers in AI, a lot of dangers. It's not just a simple proposition. So you have to advance the benefits and contain the dangers. Would it not make sense, and I'm sure it will, for President Trump and President Xi in their upcoming meeting to talk about advancing humanity's benefits out of AI, but jointly controlling the dangers that could be quite frightening? So, you know, it's not everything is a zero-sum game, and I don't think everything is a zero-sum game when it comes to Iran. Do you really want to have a fanatic regime with nuclear weapons that is committed to Islamist revolutions? That's what Iran's constitution says. We're committed to export the Islamist
China should
revolution. So
reconsider.
China, I think, should think about...
Because it's apparently doing it right now.
Could be. I don't want to speak for China. I don't want to speak also...
But you have
for
eyes and
President,
ears on this.
Yeah, well, but I also have a closed mouth when necessary.
Yeah, so there he is kind of hiding certain things. Yeah, and it shows a certain introversion. So whether that's sleep or actually it is play last, possibly, that's remained to be seen. But the NI and SE in the middle, you can kind of see him going back and forth there. And then we do have this question that I am thinking about, which is, I'm not sold on TI just yet. Yeah, I'm gonna be seeing what that and there's a bunch more comments here. And we got a hello Habib from Savage Studio. Good to see you guys. I will read those comments later. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, you could see the double observing. Now, whether it's TI or FI, that is a question. One of the things I am seeing is his DI could be feminine. So that might be one of the reasons why, if it's TI, it might not come off like the traditional TI that we're used to seeing. And in that case, we would see the masculine FE a lot more than the feminine TI. But yeah, so the introversion versus extroversion is a big question as well that I'm looking at. And he was basically hiding and trying to control the interview here. And that's basically what I'm alluding to here, where I remember indie author posted that, hey, it reminds me of the animal stack of sleep blast, consume play last. So it is pretty clear that Netanyahu is a blaster. And this is just going to be some evidence to see, hey, he's controlling the interview. And let's take a look.
Is that something that could create an inadvertent clash between Israel and Russia over Iran? Because if it's existentially important to Israel, might it get to that stage?
I think there was a lot of cooperation between them in the beginning phases of the Ukraine war, because Iran was supplying drones.
Right.
But
I mean, Russian support for Iran now.
But I have to tell you, there's not been that much support. Yeah, I don't think it's because of us. I think it's because Iran, or rather Russia maybe, thinks that some of the things that Iran does is not necessarily to its favor. But it's a mixed bag, it's not a direct black and white, sometimes they have mixed interests. So they support them on some things and don't support them on other things.
So you detect minimal support from Russia in this conflict?
You mean military support?
Yes.
Direct military support. That's not been a big issue.
How about intelligence support?
Let me leave it to what I said.
Yep. Let me leave it to what I said. So that's definitely controlling the interview. He's not afraid to just kind of say what he's willing to answer, what he's not willing to answer. Meanwhile, the opposite, the non-blasters that consume, they're like, oh, you have a question. Oh, I can't wait to share with you the information I have. I have so much information that I can share, but the blaster's like, nope, I'm going to drip you the information slowly. And based on whether I feel like you're ready for this information or not, which is, it's a good lesson, actually. So myself with the blast last. And I appreciate that indie author here was telling me to ignore his stuff. It's kind of off topic. I think it's a TE dynamic. Yeah, I mean, that's the fun of the game. That's the fun of guessing. And then I see he is definitely not Trump. I would agree with that. But he sees Trump. He understands Trump. That's what I would say, is that he's not Trump, but he understands Trump. So here in this bonus clip, so it's not, typing is not just about what someone does or says, but it's also a little bit of like, what are people saying about you? What kind of energy are you leaving in the room, in the world? And Netanyahu is a pretty significant figure on the global stage. So Jiang here is going to comment on something, but it's interesting, like, who are you seeking to as like a mentor, as an advisor? And Netanyahu is very connected to the religious people and the rabbis, and Jiang is going to comment on that. It's a very short clip. Let's just see what Jiang has to say.
So as an up-and-coming politician, Netanyahu is going to a rabbi, and the rabbis are the most powerful people in the Jewish society. He basically says, will you give me your blessing? Will you support me in my political endeavors? And the rabbi says, yes. They also talk about how things are progressing, okay? So another way of saying this is that there's almost like a plan in motion to achieve certain religious objectives. And things are going well. But the Rabbi Schneerson says, but they're not going fast enough because we need the Messiah, the great leader of the Jewish people, to come. And we can set in motion things that will force the coming of the Messiah. So let's speed things up.
Yeah, I understand that this kind of stuff can be a little bit crazy. Yeah, this is so funny. So Jang do be getting crazy the more he puts out videos. And he was always crazy just showing us his NI more. So basically, you know, the thing about Netanyahu is like, if he really was, because I was debating whether he's NI at the top, does he have NI first or second? But because he's going to a rabbi and the way he's going about it, it's more like an STP or like an SP type getting the blessing of the local NI person. You know, like if you have NI second or third, you know, you're gonna still want the intuitives to be on your side, you know, and you're gonna go to them and get their help or mentorship or whatever. And that seems to be what Netanyahu's doing here, you know, with the rabbis. And you know, even so, he has his ambitions, he has the things he's trying to do, things he's trying to accomplish as an IP politician, you know. And there's some stuff about the Messiah stuff here, but like, you know, that's not really. It's more like these people are representing the intuitive landscape, the you know, the dreaming, more spiritual side of things, and he is going to someone else for that. So that also helps me see that he's not necessarily an observer; he's more on the decider side, or he doesn't have NI first, is what I'm trying to say. In that case, he would be going about it differently. It would be like fellow magicians meeting up, like two wizards meeting up. You know. Anyway, bonus clip number 4. So this is the 4th video, is what I'm saying. Number 4. What's Biden saying about Netanyahu? So here on a hot mic, Biden says something about Netanyahu. What does he say? Why does he say it?
This right here. This is one of the big great speeches. Really nice. I was telling your secretary, you know, I was in Jordan and Israel this weekend, and just, you know, you got to keep pushing what you're doing on humanitarian stuff and all this stuff. So I told him, maybe some people, maybe you want to come to Jesus. Sure, just that was good.
Yeah, that's really funny. It's like you and me, we got to have a come to Jesus meeting. So what is Netanyahu doing? He's basically possibly he's doing too much. He's being too aggressive. Maybe it's hinting at double masculine. Maybe it's hinting at extrovert. Maybe it's hinting at something, you know, maybe it's just the number one energy that Netanyahu has. You know, we didn't talk too much about social types, but Netanyahu's doing so much that it's like, hey, what about the humanitarian causes? What about the, like, you know, not being really, you know, not being a genocidal maniac? Like, can you hold back? You know, he really made Biden look bad, because every time Biden said, hey, we're going to do something more peaceful, is like there was just more violence, you know. And it's pretty rough. You know, Biden had no control over the situation. And Biden is a ESTP, consume, play, sleep. And so is Netanyahu kind of an opposite type to just be able to walk circles around Joe Biden? It's not only that Joe Biden is old, but it could be that their types are a little bit, in a way, opposite. And then the other coin I was struggling with, and we're going to bring Lex Fridman back for this, is Benjamin Netanyahu an information dominant person or an energy dominant person? And honestly, I'm quite conflicted. So this is a coin I could use some help on from you guys. So I appreciate to if you guys could help think about it. Anyway,
When I
let's
got
do
elected,
this.
I said, well, what do you think is the most important quality for a prime minister of Israel? And he came back with a question, what do you think? And I said, well, you have to have vision, and you have to have the flexibility of navigating and working towards that vision. Be flexible, but understand where you're heading. And he said, well, you need that for anything. You need it for, if you're a university president or if you're a leader of a corporation or anything. Anybody would have to have that. I said, all right, so what do you need to be the leader of Israel? He said, he came back to me with a word that stunned me. He said, education. You need a broad and deep education, or you'll be at the mercy of your clerks, or the press, or whatever. You have to be able to do that. Now, as I spend time in government, being reelected, by the people of Israel, I recognize more and more how right he was. You need to constantly ask yourself, where's the direction we want to take the country? How do we achieve that goal? But also understand that new disciplines are being added. You have to learn all the time. You have to learn all the time. You have to add to your intellectual capital all the time. Kissinger said that he wrote that once you enter public life, you begin to draw on your intellectual capital, and it'll be depleted very quickly if you stay a long time. I disagree with that. I think you have to constantly increase your understanding of things as they change, because my father was right. You need to broaden and deepen your education as you go along. You can't just sit back and say, well, I studied some things in university or in college or in Boston or at MIT, and that's enough. I've done it. No. Learn. Never stop.
And if I might suggest, as part of the education, I would add in a little literature, maybe Dostoevsky,
Okay, yeah, and they're going to have a little conversation about that, but I think the idea is about learning and education, and I'm not sure which side is on. Is he an energy dominant person learning about the information dominant way of being, or is he an information dominant person who is just justifying their desire to just keep learning and knowledge and history and all this? And the clip does go on, but I don't want to keep going too long on this. But yeah, so that's the question. I mean, that is, at least as far as I can tell, it's possible. He's, and the two animal stacks are sleep, blast, consume, play last, or sleep, blast, play, consume last. Is he more on the extrovert side? Is he more on the introvert side? Is he building up this knowledge, and is it depleting really fast? Is he building up that knowledge enough? Or is he just going out and doing stuff and being an extrovert, chasing people around? So that is the question. And so at least, and I'll explore it here. But before we go, I will say that I do have this section here about like what his original name is. His original name was Milikowski before Netanyahu. So his dad was Benjamin Milikowski. So it's like, from an information perspective, like his name isn't even the real name. It's not the original. He, I think, has a Polish background. And so that's kind of the predicament between Israel and the rest of the world, is that these are basically European people who are possibly Jewish and, or possibly converted. No one knows really. And they are creating the state of Israel, and they're trying to get as many people in it. But that's not what Judaism is about. That's not actually, that's why it's called Zionism. And his father was into this. And the whole Zionist movement is basically a hijacking of the Jewish faith. And it's saying like, hey, if you're Jewish, you care about this place. And religions are not necessarily about physical places. Religions are generally spiritual. It's not about necessarily physical locations, but people will push agendas to say, hey, it's about this physical location. And that's just not what spirituality, religion is actually about. you can't go to a physical place and actually see God. Like, that's not how this works. But Zionism is pushing this. And anyway, yeah, Milikowski. So this is a rant by someone about the name changes. Let's see that.
I show you what I'm about to show you, your mind will be blown. You're going to be blindsided. Every single Israeli prime minister has a fake name. Did you know that? I was just talking about Ben Gurion. Do you know what his original name is? It's Grun, Gruen. He changed it to make it sound more Jewish and sound more Middle Eastern. Do you know what Netanyahu's real name is? It's not Netanyahu, it's Milkovsky. I swear to God, go and look it up. You'll find Milkovsky. That's his real name. These are, remember what Israelis are. Israelis are European Jews. They don't come from Palestine, but they want you to make you believe. They want to make believe and make you believe that they come from this area, that they are indigenous to the land, that they're so Jewish, right? Even though they have no connection. So they changed the names. Here's another one. Moshe Sharat. His name is Chertok originally. You've got Levi Eshkol. Eshkol was Shklonik. So he changed it from Shklonik to Eshkol. Then you have Yigal Alon, his original name, Peikovitz. Golda Meir, Israel's first female prime minister. Her real name is not Golda Meir, it's Mabovich. Mabovich. More like mad bitch. We have Yitzhak Rabin, right? His name is not Rabin, it's Rubitsov. Are you seeing the pattern? These are Eastern European names. Not Palestinian, not Jewish, not Middle Eastern. They're Eastern European. Okay?
All right. Yep. So that was it. That was the deal with the names. And yeah, I mean, the more you dig into history, the more you actually acquire real knowledge. You just calm down and learn what the real information is. As soon as you look at the facts and you have a bit of empathy, you'll understand these situations very easily. There might be certain details you get wrong, but of course, if you are trying to learn, yeah. And we have a nice discussion here in the comments. But yeah, so my initial narrow down. So let's get to the type. So Benjamin Netanyahu, is what I'll call him, even though Milikowski is a name that he had originally. It's okay. So DI, sleep and thinker. So in this region, that's a good first safe guess. He has sleep, he has possibly TI. Now, the author was saying that, it could be FI. Now that's a potential cost. I see TI and, I didn't go out of my way to prove it. So that can be a doubt. No worries there. But I'm seeing that he's pursuing truth. He's pursuing things. And so, he's talking about theories and stuff, but that's just one coin. And then if I'm to narrow down really deep, it's just like, hey, what if he's an extrovert? Then that basically eliminates all of these types from down to just this one stack, right? If he's sleep and extrovert, then he's basically in this column of sleep, last, play. But that's too much narrowing down. Let's back out a little bit. And he does have NI, not SI. So he's NT, allegedly, because he talks about, the theories and the intellectual side of things. And he's not really talking about anything else. And yeah, I mean, he's able to keep up with Lex Fridman on some level. And yeah, so that's OIDI blast. So sleep blast consume or sleep blast play. That's the question. And I was saying he's a decider, not an observer. So it's TI-NI versus NI-TI. Now, yeah, let's see. Basically, if he's an IP, what does that give us? That gives us, yeah, TI-NI sleep blast play or sleep blast consume. So that would be an ambivert as well. And yeah, so my actual guess for Benjamin Netanyahu is double masculine, TI-NI, sleep blast play, consume last, number one. So yeah, and we had in the comments that someone does agree that he's a number one for sure. And the double masculine part, that's going to give him a feminine TI and feminine NI, and so that's the feminine NT sleep with this double masculine SEFE demon play. aggression. And so you can see that playing out in a number of ways. But the alternate guess is Sleep Blast Consume. So I do have this written here. I don't know if he's Sleep Blast Play or Sleep Blast Consume. I almost had this as my final guess, and honestly, I'm pretty 50-50 on it. So I'll be looking to revise this and let you know in a couple weeks what I really think. But another coin I was debating between is double masculine and MF. I'm seeing double masculine, but it could be, could be the other way around. But he's definitely masculine sensor. And so anyway, this is an ISTP jumper. So someone who's jumping over that extroverted sensing just to get to the NI, because he's very goal-oriented, very much in the planning. He's actually really planning things and all that. And yeah, so that's my final guess is TINI, Sleep Blast Play Consume Last, number 1, double masculine. And so yeah, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be, so that was it for Benjamin Netanyahu. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to be doing a sponsored typing. So we got this one sponsored by Antoine, and it's Jonathan Pajot, I believe is how you say it. And yeah, he's a content creator about theology, symbolism, a lot of, I will just say, like intuitive concepts, a lot of intuitive concepts. And he did work with Jordan Peterson. I think he was, he's talking about, spirituality, religion, these things. And he's got a lot of interesting ideas. So I'm looking forward to that. And after that sponsored typing, and I'll see if I can imbue the theme of light and dark into this. But I do think he's wrestling with a lot of themes and a lot of intuitive talk. So I think it's pretty much in line with the types of people I would be typing anyway. But yeah, so special thanks to Antoine for sponsoring this one. And yeah, Jonathan Pajot, I'm really looking forward to it. I tried to look up a good bio for him, but this is the kind of thing I get from his Twitter. Symbolism happens. He does have some interesting ideas about symbolism. It's worth looking into. But yeah, so that's that. And let me see if I can catch up on some comments. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and like and subscribe. Oh, we see someone is interested in that. That's cool. That's Matthias, I believe. Yep. Cool. Awesome. And the author has a guess. Cool. Yeah, thanks for commenting, y'all. A lot of good comments in the author and Matthias, Nathaniel and Matthias. But yeah, so glad to do this one on Netanyahu. I think going into the darkness is part of life. There's so much we can learn from facing our demons. That's how Harry Potter beat Voldemort. You got to name them. You got to name these people. I think he's a war criminal and welfare queen, Netanyahu at least, right? And yeah, just taking all of our tax money, and it's not without the permission of our politicians. So there's a lot of work that you and I can do individually and on a societal level to rectify these mistakes. We're responsible for the war criminals of our time. The people of Hitler's time were responsible for Hitler. The people of our time are responsible for whatever Netanyahu does. The ants are stronger than the grasshoppers, anyway. But it's also our responsibility to learn what the hell's going on and face our darkness. So anyway, without further ado, I hope you all take care. And yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. See ya. Take care. Have a good one.